Hello. Today we have our lesson on slope. This is part 1. Let's start by defining a couple of things. First of all, a growth factor is a rate of change. And then a rate of change is a ratio that compares the amount of change in a dependent variable to the amount of change in an independent variable. And so here we have an example of an equation, y equals 3x plus 1. And notice that the 3 is circled. The 3 is the growth factor in this equation. And if you recall from our work on patterns and all the multiple representations, that when we represent a rule using a pattern of tiles or pattern of blocks, the amount of tiles that each figure changes by is the number in front of x. It's the growth factor. So let's look and see what that looks like. Here we have an example, the same example we had, y equals 3x plus 1. And if we were to draw the figures which represent this rule, figure 0 would have 1 block or 1 tile. And then figure 1 would have 3 more tiles, and figure 2 would have 3 more tiles again. So you can see that the growth factor, the amount of tiles being added to each figure, is equal to the coefficient of x, which is 3. And notice that it is also a ratio. The number 3 can be written as a ratio, in other words, as a fraction, as 3 over 1. And so our growth factor tells us that the amount of change in tiles is 3 for every change in one figure. So this leads us to the definition of slope. The slope of a line is defined as the ratio of rise over run. And what we mean by the rise is the difference of the y values of any 2 points on a line. The run is the difference of the x values of any 2 points on a line. So we can say that the slope of a line is the ratio of rise to run for any 2 points on a line. Looking at the picture that we have, you can see how rise would be the amount of change between 2 points that are on a line in the y direction. And the run would be the amount of change for those same 2 points in the x direction. This is what we call slope. Alright, so let's look at this line and let's calculate its slope. Well, we can see from our picture that if we pick 2 points on this line, that if we go up 5 in the y direction, that would be the rise, and over 3 in the x direction, that would be the run, that the slope of this line would equal 5 over 3, or 5/3. Alright, let's calculate the slope for this line. There are 2 points marked for us. We have the point x equals 0, y equals 3, and the point x equals 4, y equals 1. Alright, so you can pause your video if you like, and then restart it to see how you did. Welcome back from pausing the video. Let's start with the rise, the difference in the y direction. Well, I can see that y equals 3 at this point and y equals 1 at this point. So the amount of change was 2, and it's 2 in the negative y direction because it's going down. Right? We went from 3 to 1. So to get from 3 to 1, we would have to subtract 2. Then the amount of change for the x, the run, from 0,3 to 4,1 would be 1, 2, 3, 4, a positive 4 in the x direction, because 0 plus 4 would equal 4. So our slope for this line is negative 2 over 4, and that can be reduced. We always try to reduce our answers for slope, and this would be written as negative 1/2. All right, so that's the growth factor for this line. This line, we have the value of y is actually going down -1/2. It's going down 1 for every 2 in the x direction. Okay, here we have another line. You can go ahead and pause your video and then restart it to see how you did. Calculate the slope. Welcome back from pausing the video. Let's go ahead and let's count our slope. Well, if I start at this point down here, my y value is equal to 1. To get up to the next point, I would have to go up. That's 3 in the y direction, and it's positive 3. All right, and then I would have to go from x equals 0 to x equals 2, that's plus 2 in the x direction. So our rise over run would be 3 over 2. So that would be our slope. That would be our growth factor. And as a matter of fact, we could write the rule for this line fairly easily. Let's start by writing y equals. All right, so our growth factor is 3 over 2, right? That's the slope. So that goes in front of x. And then to get this number over here, we would simply write what's the value of y when x is 0, right? That figure 0. Well, it's right here. It's 1. If x is 0, y is going to equal 1. So the rule for this equation, this line, would be y equals 3 over 2x plus 1. All right, let's try this one. Go ahead and calculate slope and see if you can also write the rule for this line. Okay, welcome back from pausing the video. I'm going to pick any 2 points on this line. I think I'll pick this point right here and this point right there. All right, so my rise, if I start, it doesn't matter where you start, but I'll start here at the point x equals -2, y equals 0. The change in the y direction from that point to this point, you would have to go up 1. So the rise is equal to 1. And then the run would be 1, 2 in the positive x direction. So the run is 2. Therefore, the slope of this line is equal to 1 over 2 or 1/2. So how'd you do? Did you get that? All right, now let's see if we can write the equation. Well, my equation would be y equals the growth factor, or my slope, in front of x, so 1/2 x, and then the value of y when x is 0. Well, that would be this point right here. When x is 0, y is equal to 1. So it's plus 1. How'd you do? Okay, great. Well, that's all for today. Thanks for listening. Don't forget, read some books.